Okay, welcome back. Welcome to the zoo. We're excited to be here. We're in a new office or a new setup
studio
today. Yeah. So this is kind of fun. I think, last time we recorded was with Elder TikTok, and that was really fun.
That was fun.
Yeah, we've got
He's a fun guy.
Good feedback from people. I think people enjoyed that episode. But yeah, I feel like we're doing a little bit better overall, just getting more sleep. Wouldn't you say, Josh?
Yeah, I feel like we've definitely turned like a new page. For those that care, our daughter, who's two and a half months now.
Yeah, I think about. Yeah.
Okay, so she's almost 2.5 months. She now is starting to sleep like pretty regularly, like 5 to 6 hours a night.
Yeah.
Without like waking up. So we're not going out of our minds too much anymore, but that was really hard.
Yeah. I feel like for a little bit, that last episode when you were talking, you were like a zombie. So I feel like we're turning a corner, getting longer stretches at night, and it kind of feels like a new person when you actually get some sleep, right?
Mm-hmm.
I guess I kind of just wanted to talk about some of the things that maybe we've been up to, and I guess things that we're looking forward to as well. I think last time we had talked about that we were doing like a staycation at the Ground America, so we could maybe chat about that.
It was a success. You know, it's always a success when we have a babysitter, your mom.
Yeah.
And are able to kind of just be us again. I mean, it's not like that we're not us when we're with our children, but it's nice to have a break for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it was cool because the last time we stayed there was after we got married. So that was kind of cool, like full circle kind of to stay there again. I liked the hotel room. It was super, super pretty. And then
the pool and the hot tub were pretty nice.
Yeah, there were a lot of people there though.
Yeah, we got to meet some interesting people.
You got to talk to some people who are in the door-to-door industry. I feel like everywhere we've been going lately, you're like chatting with people that are in door-to-door. Like it just comes up all the time. I don't know if it's just Utah and so many people are in that industry, but it seems like
we can't escape it.
Yeah, we're always talking about sales and door-to-door stuff. It's funny. But it's interesting to me too. I just think it's cool that, a lot of people are doing hard things, I guess.
Yeah.
It's fun to talk about that. But
speaking of hard things, one of our favorite shows just came back. It's called Special Forces. And I like it because it's a bunch of celebrities that have to go through Special Forces training. And like, to be clear, it's not in any way comparable to what real Special Forces training is like, but it's entertaining watching them go through it.
Yeah. This is the third season I think we've watched. Yeah, I think I will say the biggest reason why I wanted to watch this season though is because of Brody Jenner. Because I don't know. I feel like I've been telling you, but I used to watch The Hills, and I think he was on Laguna Beach too. But anyway, all those guys that were on The Hills are like really popular right now. I'm not really sure exactly why. Like,
I can honestly say I've never seen a single episode of any of those shows.
Yeah. But I told you, like, Spencer Pratt and Heidi Montag from that show, because their house just burned down in the fires in the Palisades in California. And so they've just been like all over the internet right now. And they did like a collaboration. His wife like did a collaboration with Pitbull. And so anyway, her song just came out. I just think it's funny. And so I think Spencer's like really good friends with Brody Jenner. And if anybody doesn't know, I think Brody Jenner's the son of Caitlyn Jenner, who used to be Bruce Jenner. Anyways, just interesting. But I feel like he's done pretty well, like on the show so far. We haven't finished it, but all the episodes are out, right? Like we just haven't finished it yet.
I don't know.
Okay.
I just know the last one we saw was the tear gas one.
Okay. So me and Josh were chatting about that show the other night, and we were talking about how like through hard things, sometimes it kind of like reveals who you really are. Like you might think this one celebrity is like super tough. Like one of the guys is a pro, or two of the guys are pro football players, right?
Yeah, Golden Tate and then Cam Newton. And Cam Newton's like, he's up there. He's one of the best quarterbacks ever. And he's known for being super athletic. Like he wasn't like a normal quarterback that would just sit there and throw the ball. He would sprint. Like he would sprint and run, and he was hard to catch. and hard to tackle. So he's known for being a tough guy. But I think what we're trying to say is that it's interesting watching people who've been successful in areas of their life all of a sudden have something that's testing them in an angle that they haven't been tested in before. And sometimes they do well and sometimes they crack. And it's just been really interesting seeing who cracks under pressure and who doesn't. Because sometimes it's not who you would think.
Because I am pretty impressed, even though, like you said, it's not exactly what the training would be like if they were really, in the special forces. But I'm impressed that a lot of those celebrities like even signed up and decided to go on that show, because I feel like a lot of people wouldn't even want to dip their toes in it because they'd be embarrassed of what they would do, right? Because I've thought about that too. Like, if I was ever on that show, how would I react to this? Or would I even be able to do that? Like, could I get there mentally? And I don't know, because you could be really, really smart in one area or mentally strong in one area, and then in another you're like, wow, I suck. And so it's just been interesting to see like who can do it, like push through, and I think a lot of it is mental.
I mean, it's all mental.
Yeah.
The thing that's interesting about it is that, like, with the tasks that they have on the show, it's not all physical and it's not all mental. Sometimes it's a combination of the two, and sometimes it's like the way that those programs are designed to work is to find the chinks in your armor and see how you'll react to it. And so some of the contestants, like, they do really well in some events, like if it's a strength event or an endurance event, like they'll do well. But if it involves something that is scary to them, like rappelling down or like doing some sort of bungee jump, or even having to deal with like tear gas, like some of them will break instantly.
Yeah, because we kind of wanted this podcast episode to kind of be about that. We were talking about the words like break and reveal. And so, like, will it break you or reveal you?
And we're talking about pressure.
Yeah. And so some of the ones that they have done where I feel like I would probably break is where I would feel really claustrophobic. And I've talked about this previously on another episode where, like, I had, a childhood thing happen where I've been scared of small spaces, And yeah, so I think one of them that they were doing, they had to go into this box, or was it a car? Was it a box or a car? I'm trying to remember. Maybe it was a car. I don't know. But it was a super small space, and they were going down into the water, and they had to swim down and like open up a box underneath the water, right? But it was really small, like the space that they were in.
Yeah.
From what I remember. And so I don't know, not only like I'm thinking in my mind, I have contacts, and I'm not going to be able to see very well underwater, and then you're in a small space, whatever. Like, that one to me was like, oh my gosh, that just sounds so terrifying, being in the water in a small space. So I don't know. Was there one on there that you felt like you might break, or like one that you would probably struggle with?
Honestly, I would not enjoy doing like a bungee jump thing. Like, I could potentially force myself to do it and just to get through it and like grit my teeth. But I just don't like those kinds of feelings. Aside from that, I'm generally like, I struggle with endurance. I'm more of like a sprinter, and all throughout sports, I always struggled with pacing myself. So anything that like is endurance related, I would struggle with naturally. And it'd be hard for me.
Yeah. Yeah. So why do you think, Josh, like in certain scenarios, we could be like really mentally tough, and then in others we like can easily break? Do you think that's like stems from our childhood a lot of the time? Is it our mental strength, or?
I think there's two things there. I think that one of it is just who we are. Like, we kind of just come that way. And then number two, I think a lot of it is experiences, but I also think it's something that can be built up. But as far as becoming so mentally strong that you could be a special forces person, I don't think so. I don't think everybody can. And I think that that's not necessarily a bad thing. But the one thing that a lot of those special forces people have in common is a lot of them had really effed up childhoods, like really effed up childhoods. And so, and that's not even like shocking for me to say that. It's just like the truth.
Yeah.
That people who go through really hard things when they're kids, to the point where it is trauma and they're messed up. Mm-hmm. A lot of times those are the types of people that are resilient enough to make it through things like special forces training. It requires a specific type of person.
Yeah. Yeah, like you said, sometimes, you know, you'd think maybe I wouldn't want to go through all the things that I would have to go through to be that type of person. But I think it's like the nature, like you said, nature versus nurture. Like we go through certain things that we are already kind of equipped to handle those types of situations, or we're not. And so I don't know.
I think one of the things that I don't feel like I fully understood prior to becoming a parent is how much pressure you feel as a parent. And pressure does reveal where you're at. Like it does. It can either reveal where you're at or it can break you. Or it does both. Like
it does both, yeah. Mm-hmm.
It can bring out the best in you, and it can also bring out the worst in you.
Yeah.
So when it comes to children, like nobody ever told us, I've mentioned this a couple times on the podcast, but if you really can't emotionally self-regulate, you're gonna mess up your kids. Like it's gonna be a struggle. And a lot of times, you know, it can reveal the kind of work that you need to do for yourself. So I do think that parenting could be one of those. It's like, this is a universal thing. It's not just like a special forces thing. Like there's a lot of different ways to feel pressure in a way that can either bring the best out of you or just reveal where you're at, whether that's a good place or not a good place.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like we've had this discussion a lot with parenting, where a lot of the time you want to pacify a situation, whether that be your kids nagging at you, crying at a situation or whatever, and you're like, just stop crying, stop, you know. You want them to stop doing what they're doing, or maybe making a scene like in public, or but a lot of the time it's like they need to be able to work through those emotions, and you need to regulate so you can help them work through those emotions instead of just like shutting it down. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes when we don't let our kids work through those things and we don't regulate ourselves, we're not only hurting ourselves, I feel like we're, like you said, we're hurting our kids because they're not learning how to work through these things. And we're just pacifying the situation by giving them a sucker, or like, you know, and sometimes you have to do that. I get that, you know, what, like you're desperate or whatever.
Yeah. Sometimes you're in survival mode, which happens pretty regularly as a parent.
Yeah. But, sometimes I ask myself, like, why is this so triggering? You know, like why in this certain scenario, whatever Noah's doing, like, why am I so worked up over this, or this tiny tyrant, this toddler? Like, how is he getting to me this strongly, you know? And a lot of the time, like you said, it reveals certain things or chinks in our armor that we're like, I need to work on that. Right. Like I need to personally work through that, you know, situation, because I don't know, it's really eye-opening. I think that's what's one of the coolest parts about being a parent, though, is you get to I don't know, just do it better almost, like what you maybe wished could have been your childhood in certain areas, or it just refines you too. Like, I don't know. And obviously I think that's why we like watching people do hard things, though, is like, it's really intriguing to watch somebody be refined. I don't really know. Like, what would you say? Like, why do we like watching people do hard things?
I don't know. I mean, I'd have to think about it, but to kind of go off of that, like when we go to plunge in the cold and like the heat, I love sitting and watching people go in for the first time.
Oh, really?
And seeing how they react to it. Don't you?
Yeah, just like to see how somebody handles cold water. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think that is true, actually, because we went for the first time with my mom, and we went with her friend. It was my mom and her friend. And I was telling Josh this the other day. Like, I think it's been so funny to see Josh convince my mom to do certain things, because I feel like my mom can be kind of stubborn sometimes. I mean, I guess we all can, but where she'll say, I'm not going to do that, right? Or I have no interest in that, right? And then Josh will be like, it's almost like you don't say you're going to do it. You just kind of like wait it out and, you know, talk about it a lot and see like maybe she will get there someday. And then it's been interesting to see you kind of break that down a little bit, that person, in a way that with my mom, this example. And I never thought she would do cold plunge. Like I never thought she would do it, because she always said it's just not her thing. Or what would she say? I don't know. Like she just,
I don't know.
Had no interest really. I think in doing it.
She wasn't interested, but she actually really enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah. And like watching her do it, she was actually really good at it. And so like you said, watching people do it, it is interesting to see how they react. And she wasn't freaking out. Like she was pretty calm. So I would say
I don't enjoy watching people suffer or like do hard things that aren't going to benefit them, but I do like watching it when I know that it will benefit them, whether it's a cold plunge or sorting through emotions or working through some business problem. It's fun to watch people grow and see whether they want to run with it or it breaks them. Or I don't know, like I don't feel like most people are like broken forever, but sometimes people will like hit a brick wall and they just won't be able to scale or grow beyond a certain point, you know? And it is interesting because I feel like at least a lot of people in my life that I know, a lot of people stay fairly constant. It's like there's not a lot of people that are really that interested in testing their limits in other areas. And look, I'm not going to say I'm perfect and say that I've got it figured out. But when it comes to business, I would say that that's one area in my life where I can never stop evolving, because my business will stop growing when I stop growing. In order for it to grow, I have to grow. And so part of me enjoys that aspect of it. But there's some people in their life where they don't have any real pressure to grow, you know, aside from maybe being a parent. But when that's done with, then what do they have, you know?
Yeah, that's true. And I think sometimes like life goes in waves, maybe a little bit, like where there could be a period of time in your life where not like you learned all you needed to learn, but maybe you're just like not being pushed as much. I don't know. But I do think like when you're constantly, I don't know, searching for that next goal or, you know, something bigger than yourself, I feel like you're always going to evolve and grow if you, I don't know, are constantly pushing yourself, which I think we always should be, right? Because I think that's when we're the happiest, right? And so maybe that's why, like what you said, it's like we like watching people go through hard things because we know on the other side of it, they're going to be a better person and they're going to be happier, even though it's hard maybe to watch somebody suffer. Like, because on that show, I mean, some of those people really do kind of suffer, but it seems like even when they're there for even a couple of days, they change. Like they learn a lot, you know? And like we've talked about with missions, like LDS missions, like that's what's so cool because it's so condensed and you change and you grow so much. Because I guess going back to what you were saying with the special forces guys, like a lot of them have traumatic childhoods. And like you had talked about, a lot of entrepreneurs have very interesting stories of things that like maybe happened to them when they were in like imperative years of their like you said, like 12 to 15 years old, like kind of puberty and, you know, going through all of these big things, big changes. So why do you think that is? Like, why do a lot of entrepreneurs and people maybe in the military, I don't know, have these interesting stories in these childhoods?
I think it definitely comes from like a survival thing, realizing that like at a younger age, if you come to terms sooner than you should, that that life isn't always fair, and sometimes there's nothing you can do about it.
Just out of your control.
It's just out of your control, and sometimes that leads you to look inwards, and sometimes that's good, sometimes that's not good when it comes to like what you do with that. But becoming self-reliant is, I would say, It's a pretty common theme in some way, like whether that's emotionally self-reliant or socially self-reliant, or yeah, I don't know. Like I don't know, but what I can say is that I know for a fact that my childhood definitely prepared me to be okay in specific types of stressful situations. Like when it comes to like existential things where some people might freak out and lose their minds when it comes to business, it doesn't really bother me. Like I don't get really riled up over it because I just understand that number one, it's not going to do anything. And number two, that I'll find the solution because I always have.
But I think the way that you operate is such a, like an art almost, because I feel like we really do live in such a high anxiety, like just a lot of people deal with anxiety, I think, today. And so I think like you going through what you went through throughout your life to prepare you for your career and what you would have to deal with is a good thing. I'm sure it was really tough at times, but I do think that sometimes when, like going back to what we were saying with like our kids, when we're constantly saving our kids from hard situations, it really doesn't prepare them for their adult life, right?
No, it doesn't.
And so it's not like you have to go through trauma to be able to handle high pressure situations. I do think that, that helped you to be able to deal with what you deal with on a daily basis. And like, I think a lot of people, if they saw the things that you have to juggle through business and your career, they would be like, how does Josh do all the things that he's doing?
I think some people would probably be surprised.
Yeah.
Except for other business entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
I think that they'd probably think like I do, that it's more par for the course.
True.
But
yeah,
you're not wrong. Some people would lose their minds. Like some people just wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah. It's just been interesting for me to think about that because I would say I can be more anxious and get worked up over small things when, you're probably more on the side of like, it's all going to be okay. It's going to work out. Why are you kind of stressing about situations that are out of your control? I
just feel like my threshold is a little bit different when it comes to things like that. Like the alarms in my brain don't start going off the same time that yours do. Yours start going off a lot sooner. Whereas mine, they don't start, I definitely have those alarms, like those internal alarms, but they don't go off for a while.
Why do you think?
It's not until I feel like I'm backed into a corner.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, there's a lot of situations in business when it comes to door to door where you may not have, just the very nature of door to door, specifically pest control, lends itself to cash flow crunches that you have to be creative in solving. And so if you grow and you have a massive payout coming up in a couple months and you don't have the funding for it, then you're screwed. You're screwed. And there's a lot of companies that fail in that way. Like they just don't have the connections. They don't have, I don't know, it just doesn't work out. But that's never been the case for me. And I don't feel like that's just because of me though. Like I feel like I'm really well connected and I have a lot of really good people that like me. And I just feel like for example, my dad has a very different set of things that he's good at dealing with, whereas I'm not. Like I get a lot of anxiety over dealing with compliance issues. Like if you put a stack of insurance things that I needed to do, insurance and tax things, like it's just not going to get done on a timely manner. And that brings me a lot of anxiety. But if you tell me I have 30 days to find $300,000, otherwise the company goes out of business, I'm significantly more comfortable with that than I am with doing the paperwork.
Yeah. I think it's like what you said. You kind of have to figure out like what categories you kind of thrive in, but at the same time, like it makes me think about myself and like what areas. So say I under pressure am super anxious in that category, like finding $300,000 in 30 days, it makes me want to get better at those types of situations. Cause like maybe I'm like the opposite of you, where I feel like I would be totally fine with filing, you know, all these important papers and keeping a planner and keeping you on track. Like some of the stuff that my mom's helped you with, like I think I could be great at that and I wouldn't feel a ton of pressure doing that. But other things I probably would. And so yeah, I just think it's just really interesting to kind of like think about yourself and like what situations you would be good at and what you wouldn't, and why is that the case, you know?
I feel like something that helps me is I'm pretty aware. Like I'm pretty aware of what I'm not
Like
good
your
at.
strengths, yeah.
Yeah, I know what I'm not good at, and I do know what I am good at. And if we're gonna use these things for business, if you can't be honest with yourself, you're gonna fail. Like you're gonna fail because you're either gonna overestimate yourself or you're gonna underestimate yourself.
And like you said, you have to delegate like certain things you're not good at to other people.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was asking you that about control with a business, and I was asking you like if somebody's too controlling, would their business fail? Like if they can't delegate, would they fail?
Most people that are super controlling don't ever scale their business because
Yeah.
they think that their way is the only way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Or like, for example, in pest control, there's a lot of people that never scale beyond one truck, beyond themselves. But for me, in business, I never wanted to own a job. Like, to me, that's not really business ownership. And I don't say this to throw shade at anybody, but realistically, one of the most beautiful aspects of entrepreneurship is that in order for that business to grow, you have to grow. Like, you would have to face that side of you. First off, you'd have to come to the realization that you're wrong, that your way to do it isn't just the only way to do it. And it's okay for somebody to get it 90% of the way there so you can spend time doing what you're really good at so you can add more value to people's lives. And then repeat it over and over and over again until you have five to 10 technicians. But on the other side of that, you have learned a lot about yourself. Like you're not a super controlling person anymore. Or if you are still, you've recognized that and made the accommodations because you're honest with yourself and recognize that if I just hold on to this with a vice-like grip, it's never going to grow. And truthfully, when you're an entrepreneur and you're a husband and you're a father, who does that hurt the most? Not only does it hurt you, but it hurts the people that depend on you.
Yeah.
And so for me, I almost feel like you have an obligation to be honest with yourself because there's truth and then there's my perception. And if I can't align my perception with what reality is, in that I have weaknesses, then you're not ever going to be able to do or scale or become what it is that you're supposed to become. And it's your fault. So I have a lot of thoughts about that when it comes to business, but that's one of the things I like the most about being in my position is that it's like entrepreneurship is the perfect incubator for self-development, because if I don't develop, it won't happen, right? Like in order for Zunex to go from 5 million to 20 million, it's going to require something very different from me, and I'll have to become a different type of person to do that. That doesn't mean I have to change my core values, but it does mean I have to learn different processes, become a better leader. And there's a difference between leadership and management. I have to become effective at both of them. I know this is like very distant from the original talking point of special forces, but
it's connected.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think just something that I have realized, like in our relationship, in our marriage, like, because even though we joke about like being fire on fire, which is true, I think that it's just been interesting for me to like realize that there's a lot of areas like where you're strong and I'm weak, but then I'm strong in the other areas and you're weak. And so I think it's just cool to have somebody who I guess can like help you work through those times that you're anxious, or I don't know, like I just feel like there's been times where you've had to talk me off the ledge, and I think there's been times for you where I've had to talk you off the ledge, or like just hype you up, you know, and make you feel like you can do it, even though there's been, you know, maybe times where you've doubted certain things, like if it would work out or not. And it's made me reflect on my own life and times where I feel like my parents in my childhood made me step up in certain areas, and in other areas they saved me, right? And kind of, not that it's good or bad, but just what do I want to do with my kids? And I think every opportunity that we can to give our kids, like, I guess, just ways to step up or to learn and to grow, we should give them those opportunities, because that's what builds character. That's what builds confidence, I feel like, too, where you can get through something and you've done it before and you can do it again, you know? And I think I didn't realize how powerful the lesson of my parents giving me, like, when you start something and you commit to something, you should finish it. And I feel like that for me was just a huge turning point in times of my life where I felt maybe weak and I didn't think I could do something. And I just had that in the back of my mind, like, I've done this before, I can do it again. And I need to finish what I set out here to do or whatever. And so I think, yeah, we just have to, like you said, be self-aware and help our kids be self-aware too, and just try to help them be the best version of themselves that they can be. And I think that's going to look different for every kid, because every kid is going to have, like what we're saying about ourselves, right, is going to have different strengths and weaknesses and stuff. And so the more that we can learn about ourselves, I think the more we can help our kids figure out who they are too, you know?
Yeah. They'll definitely have a harder time figuring out who they are if we struggle with doing that ourselves, right?
Yeah. But it's just so interesting. Like, I remember we were like on ChatGPT, like both of us asking it questions the other night, and I'm like, like, we've only been married for over 4 years now, but like I asked ChatGPT, like, when will I ever understand like the fullness of my husband, like the lore of my husband? Like, I don't know, I was just thinking, I feel like I learn so much about you all the time. And I don't know if you feel like that about me, but I just feel like we're constantly learning and growing, and basically ChatGPT was like, you never will. Like, and so it's just so cool in a way though, that we just can continue to learn and grow and learn from each other. And it's never going to be like this end point, you know? And I hope it never is. Like, I think both of us feel that way. Like, we want to continuously be grabbing for more and like pushing for more. But I think, like, I remember it talking about on ChatGPT, like, you have a hard time actually like relishing in what you've done and like being proud of what you've done.
I do.
And so I almost feel like when you look at it, like, you should have moments of where it's like a baseline. Like, maybe you're not going up a mountain all of the time, right? You're not always climbing. I think you need to have moments of like celebration and victories and stuff too.
Do you feel like I don't enough?
Yeah, I feel like, I don't know, just from what we've talked about, I feel like you are so excited about building and building and building. And so I'm thinking of you like building this mountain and climbing and climbing and climbing. And I think it's really hard for you to like sit back and be like, oh, wow, like I did that, right? Or I'm proud of myself for doing that. And I definitely think I can help you more with that too. But I think there's a lot of beauty in that too, where you can sit back and relish in that too, because it's exhausting. I feel like a lot of the stuff that you do. And if you continue on that path of just going up and up and up and up, that's when like burnout can happen. I feel like, you know, like you have to still pause maybe for a second and just be like I said, proud.
I have a hard time with that. Like I feel like in general, I have a hard time on vacation. Like I get really antsy. I don't know. I think part of that's maybe my ADD. But I really don't feel like I fully understand where that comes from with me, because my parents definitely encouraged me and told me when they were proud of me. There was nobody that ever like withheld that from me. I think that it does come like internally, like me measuring myself internally and feeling like, I don't know, me attaching more of my self-worth instead of like any destination, more so to the pursuit. And so when it comes to fulfillment, I feel like I receive a lot of fulfillment in the pursuit of building more so than the actual standpoint, because I feel like for me, I've just gotten really honest with myself and come to recognize that there really is no end point. Like I'm supposed to keep pushing it until I die. And like I would just be a really cranky old man if I couldn't find some way to do that in my life, whether it's business or something else. For me right now, the easiest medium to do that with is business. Business and parenting and our relationship. Those are the three things, and our faith. Like those are like the four things that are the most important to me. And everything else really just doesn't feel as important. Like, I don't know that we've talked about this like a lot on the podcast, but I also really struggle with buying things for myself. And I do think that that's connected. Like I just don't really receive any sense of enjoyment out of it. Like it doesn't like add anything. It doesn't really add anything to me. Like you wanted to get me a bracelet, like a nice gold chain bracelet. And it's like, okay, but it's like I'm not a cheapskate, but like it's not going to make me happier. And I don't know why I'm that way.
Because you're looking at it like, how is it really going to enhance your life, right?
Yeah, and I just don't think that it will. Mm-hmm. You know, I just like I've never been able to squeeze any lasting happiness out of any purchase I've ever made ever. So it's like, I don't know. I just don't get it. Like,
yeah. But I wonder, like, what would be that pinnacle moment for you, like where you could celebrate? You know what I mean? Because I feel like from what we were talking about the other day, like I feel like it would be a vacation. But am I wrong? I don't know.
No, I would say our honeymoon was a pinnacle moment where I was able to celebrate. Mm-hmm. Being able to take us on a really cool African safari, like that was cool. No, most people don't ever have experiences like that.
Yeah.
But for me, I would say like when we finally build a custom home, like I think that that's something that I would be able to look at that and be like, yes, like this is like I'm on the right path for what it is that I'm wanting to build. Like the two things that like I don't have a lot of wants, but I do want a nice house. That's like the what is it called? The Parade of Homes. It's in the Parade of Homes. It's gonna be dope.
That's your manifestation.
And then number two, I'd love a fishing boat. And besides that, I don't really have like any material wants. Like, which honestly, in some ways, I feel like it's hurt my business.
But I'm saying like, I think you still have to think of little moments that you could have that you would celebrate, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know. But maybe for you, that's just like quality time, like a date or something, or because it doesn't seem like it's gifts. And that probably goes back to like love languages and stuff too. Mm-hmm. But I thought it was so funny the other day. I saw on Instagram, like somebody had posted like my love language is silence. I'm sorry, I'm like randomly putting that in there, but I was like, yeah, that's me. Like, I just feel like when you're around kids so much and Noah's so loud and crazy sometimes, I'm like the nicest thing is just us sitting in a sauna, like with no background noise or anything. And you can just sit there in silence. Like, I don't know. I just think that you definitely need to be celebrated more and like proud of yourself more, because you're doing so much and you're go all the time. But I think it's also good to have moments of like peace and I don't know, happiness, I guess. And
I think you're not wrong. Like Zunex is a $5 million business and I don't feel any sort of finality or any sort of like, I need to pat myself on the back with it. Am I proud of it? Yeah. Like I am proud of it, but not proud enough to like hang my hat on it. You know, like,
Yeah, I get it. Like there's still a lot of pursuits that you have, and there's a lot more of the journey that you are looking forward to. But I still think that you have to have those moments though, or the journey just passes you by.
I would agree with that. Yeah, I would agree with that. I am really, really excited to open up in Miami though. Like that's something that I've wanted to do for 10 years. I don't know what it is, but the first time I went to Miami, I was just enamored with it. I think a part of it is me like having like this, a little bit of sadness inside just because my father's from Chile, but we weren't raised with any real Spanish culture. And maybe a part of me thinks that it like, I don't know, it provides a good reason for me to learn Spanish, like a good actual reason that makes sense to me. Like instead of,
I just don't know if we'll be there long enough for you to actually learn it, you know?
I mean, probably not.
Yeah.
Probably not. But I'm just trying to think of reasons why I was so enamored with it. But I think that it definitely has to do with culture and me feeling like I'm supposed to have this whole side of me that I understand and I don't. Like, because I'm 50%, like I'm 50% Latin, but I don't speak Spanish. And Chile has a really beautiful culture, and I wish I knew more about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think all you can do now is, well, I mean, for one, you can travel to Chile, right? You can, number two, I think something ever since my dad passed that I really wish I would have done is that, like, I've heard of it, but it's like Storyworth. It's like a book that you give to them and they answer all these questions and they make it into a book of like your dad's life. And I just think that's something that you could do. Like, I think you should do it soon because you just never know, right? And so I just wish I had more stories in a book where I could literally look at and be like, wow, I don't know, just learn from my dad a little bit deeper, I guess. And so everybody could say that about a lot of people though, right? You wish you would have had this conversation. You wish you would have, you know, done this or that. But I'm saying like we have the present, we have now. And so you should ask your dad more questions, you know, you should make a book or something like that. And then we can teach our kids, right, about your dad's stories. And going back to Chile, you know, you could ask more people, I guess, about the stories too, or there's options is what I'm saying. But yeah, I just think there's like little acts that you could make to where you could learn more about that culture and about your dad.
Yeah.
And you could push that, or not push that, but give that gift to your kids. And I think there's some things too that we could even do, like food wise. You could, you know, make certain things that are Chilean, right? And you can incorporate small things like into our family that would be our traditions, right? And that would be the part of you that's Chilean that we bring into our own home. I think just a lot of it like is our own choices, right? Or our own, like, what's your priority? What are your kids going to remember? Like,
so I understand what you're saying. Through my own effort, 100%, I could choose to engage with that culture. For me, I feel like what I miss or what I missed was like experiencing it as a child.
But you can't go back on that,
I know.
right? So yeah.
I'd like, if I'm honest though, I think part of me mourns that a little bit. Like I feel like there's a gap there that I wish had been filled. I mean, it's not like, you're right, I can't do anything to fix it, but
all you have is the present.
Yeah, all I have is the present. I do think that plays like some sort of role in why I'm enamored with Miami.
No, I get that. Yeah.
And it's also a really good fishing place, which I also love fishing.
Yeah. And I'm excited to move there too. I think the plan right now is we're going to go in May. Like
May, June, and July.
Yeah. And I'm excited too, because it's just so funny to look back. And we had this conversation the other day, but like, excuse me, where our first date, I remember you talking about Florida and I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to date this guy because I don't ever want to live in Florida. And I was just thinking like some of the stuff you talked about, I could never like visualize myself doing, you know? And I guess that probably shows maybe how persuasive you are. Like going back to the things that you probably persuaded my mom to do, you've also persuaded me to do. Like, I don't know, I just never thought I would be so open, I guess, to doing some of the things that we've done in our marriage. And like, I am proud of myself, actually,
You should be.
just being like supportive of your dreams, but also like open to new experiences and adventures, and like getting to build this crazy life together. And I guess like, even though I always knew I was adventurous and I love to travel, I don't think I would have looked at our life and been like, oh, for sure, Caitlin's going to move to Florida like for 3 months. I don't know. And so I feel like I'm just in a good spot where I know that there's a lot of fun that comes with that, but it's going to be crazy too. Right. But I think it's so cool to be able to experience that with you, because I know how much you love Florida and it's always been your dream. And, yeah, I guess I never realized how much like fulfillment and happiness I would have from like being with somebody and like getting to experience their dreams with them. Like, it's just like really, really cool. I don't know. Yeah.
It's our dream. Do you feel like sometimes, like when I tell you what it's going to be like, do you feel like sometimes it's hard to feel that? Because I joke with you about what it'll look like. Our life will look very different in ways that, like, some people would probably say you shouldn't talk about because it's like weird, because it involves money. Like, there will be a time when, it's not right now, that's for damn sure, but that we make multiple millions of dollars a year in annual income. It's just going to happen. Like, it's not a matter of when, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. We've just been really, really, really patient. But does that even feel real to you?
Yeah, I think it's hard to even picture some of the things that you talk about, you know, until you're like actually living it. I think like we've just been, like you said, grinding for so long that I don't know what that looks like, but it makes me excited. It makes me more excited than anything though, because it really has been just so cool for me to watch you do what you've done, because I am just so proud of like everything that you've built. And so I think like, yeah, it's like I'm proud of myself. I'm proud of you. And so I think when it comes to that point, it'll feel more real because of all the work that we've put in, you know, like we deserve that. So
what do you think we'll need to, like, when do you think that you would celebrate, or maybe like realize, whoa, this is actually like happening?
I mean, I was just thinking about this today, but like in my mind, I think we're both on the same page with this, but my favorite way to celebrate is to like, to travel with you, you know? And so I would say like taking you, like I was just thinking, like what I would love to do is spend less money, like you always say, on frivolous things, and actually like saving for something really epic, or, you know, taking you to a place that you've never been. Like, I think we both really like going places together too that we both have never been to.
Yeah, we do.
And so it's like a shared cool experience. Like, wow, we just went to Morocco and we, you know, get to experience this all for the first time together, you know?
And I think that you're this way too. I think that we both kind of enjoy going to places that other people don't really go to.
Yeah, I think it is cool to travel to places that, like you said, maybe someone wouldn't pick, or like right off the bat. Yeah.
Not because it's not cool, but just because it's not like,
it's not Hawaii.
super commercialized, or
yeah, or just easier
basic
to get to, or it's cheaper or whatever, right? Like Mexico's cheaper, all those things. But yeah, I mean, something that came up in my mind, I was like, I would actually really love to go to New York with you. Like, even though I've already been to New York, like I know you've always wanted to go, and we both really like to try new restaurants and stuff like that. So that's, I mean, in my mind, like I would say traveling would be a way to celebrate, but I'm sure there's other ways we could think of too. So I don't know, but yeah. And then I was going to touch on too, in a little bit, like couple weeks, we're going to Orlando.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm super excited for that too.
Yeah, there's a big like convention. It's called the Pest Management. What is it called? Pest Management Professionals Summit.
Yeah.
It's like a growth summit, and so I'm going there to network and hang out in Florida with you guys.
Yeah.
So bringing you guys along with me.
Yeah. So I'm hoping we get to escape the cold and go to the beach. So I think it's Siesta Key Beach is the one that we went to last time that I really want to go to. It's like the white sand. It's really cool. And I think we're going to hit up Disney World, which I'm so excited because you've never been to Disney.
I'm not excited about the ticket price, but yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah. So anyway, we have some things to look forward to. This year is going to be crazy, but yeah, I think just kind of cool to reflect on some of the stuff we talked about, just, you know, breaking you, reflecting on what can reveal you. And, you know, I think there's a lot in this episode that like I even want to think about, just like pushing myself, you know, trying to be my best self. And yeah, just I don't know, any other thoughts on like the breaker reveal? I guess.
No.
Like, yeah.
I just do want you to know though that me and Zunex is not just like a me thing. Like I legitimately couldn't do it without you. And you know that. Like I wouldn't be able to focus like I do at work if I didn't know that things were taken care of at home, or if I felt like my absence like took away in a meaningful way from Noah. But it doesn't, because you're such an attentive mom. And if you weren't that kind of mom, I really would struggle with it, because even though I wouldn't say anything to you about it because I'm not dumb,
Yeah.
I would know whether or not my absence was like a make or break thing with Noah, which it's not like I'm totally absent. I'm not. But
Yeah.
it makes it easier for me to work really hard knowing that everything's good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that means a lot to me because I feel like you recognize the like work that I do and like the way that I support you. But also like I know if I was having a really hard time, and there's been times where I have, you know, but you know, having difficulties or whatever, and I feel like you really do listen to me and like you're cognizant of things that like I go through too. Like we're both just going through different things and balancing a lot, just like every parent person is in this world, I guess. But it helps a lot when you have like a supportive, loving partner who, you know, you can just push through and help each other through the hard times. So, but yeah, that's really all I have today. I don't know. Do you have anything else?
Nope. Welcome to the zoo.
Okay. Thanks guys for listening. And yeah, just share the podcast with anyone that, you know, would think would enjoy this episode. And yeah, that's it.